And I'll never forget on that day that we call Walk Day 2015, that I was standing on the other side of 123 waiting to cross for the traffic to part so that we could cross over. And this wave of emotion just hit me. I felt as if it was something akin to Joshua leading the Israelites across the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Well, back in 1992, I received a call from our district superintendent here in the Alexandria district, and he asked me if I'd be interested in serving a church. I was in San Antonio, living with my wife Rosemary and our 1-year-old daughter Taylor, and a bright white Eskimo Spitz named Megan. You know, even before I got here, Christ Church was meeting at the old Lorton Elementary School at the intersection of Lorton Road and Interstate 95. It's not even a school anymore. I think it's a bus transportation center or something.
We were in the Lorton School in the gym, which, by the way, wasn't air conditioned, and during the summer it got rather, let's call it aromatic, to be polite. But then that fall, Silverbrook Elementary opened up, and we shifted from Lorton School to Silverbrook, which had the biggest thing that we all noticed immediately. It had air conditioning, because it was a hot fall that first fall there.
We could have met in my living room. We were such a small group. I was the only pastor, and I had a very, very part-time secretary and a very, very part-time keyboardist. And that was the entire staff. And we were known as the church in the box.
We had a couple of small folding tables, and we made that the altar, and we would set up and have church and then tear down and put things back in people's trunks, and we were on our way about noon on Sunday.
But we didn't have to set up very many chairs. There were only about 35 people.
And we just continued to grow.
One of the things we recognized was that nobody was doing worship in a contemporary way. And we were the very first United Methodist Church in the state of Virginia to do all contemporary worship.
And we started talking about raising money and building a church, and it was at that point that the Glen Eagles Church was built.
And we went from a place in 1992 where they couldn't afford my salary and couldn't afford the rent of the school to where we were able to build and occupy our very first building on Memorial Day weekend of 1995. If that's not the Holy Spirit at work and God pouring His blessings in upon the ministry of this church, I don't know what is.
And the cross that's behind me was a cross that we carried from the elementary school over to the new property, which is 5 acres, sitting at Cross Point behind the community center. And we put that cross in the ground as part of groundbreaking. And then when the church was built, we put it near the front door of the church at Glen Eagles. The day we moved in, it was already too small.
We had to add 2 single-wide trailers because we needed more classroom space. Then by 1999, we were at standing room only in our worship center. Then over the years, we added 3 more double-wide trailers to continue the expansion. We added more worship services in 2003.
And then the next step was then to purchase the land here.
And when we crossed 123, it felt like we had inherited the promised land that God had been promising for us for so long, for those 10 years.
John was in tears because we were actually going to make it to the promised land. And I think that was a big deal for him and for a lot of us that had been around for a while, that, hey, we're here. We've got more room to do what we need to do.
I'm grateful to the Lord. I feel like I'm going to choke up now, but I'm grateful to the Lord that He didn't make us wander for 40 years. It was only 10, but it was every bit as emotional, I can imagine, that the Israelites must have thought when they crossed. And that's the reason why we designed and built the fountain the way we did. The fountain that's out in front of the church is our story. It's the story of the Israelites, but it's our story.
When I think of Christ Church, I think of us demonstrating, us being the members demonstrating Christ's love through the welcoming, our hospitality, our service.
You've got the kids in here doing something. The very young kids here every day for Green Tree Preschool. You got the older kids coming in for their events on Wednesday and Sundays and stuff.
Bible study small groups, we have small groups, we have a grief group, we have a cancer support group.
It's the service activities, going to West Virginia and helping elderly paint porches when the teen group does that. It's the Wind-Shaped Camp sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
You've got this whole online ministry of people that faithfully, I guess, come get online and watch what's going on.
Our church has nothing to do with where we sit. It has everything to do with who we are.
We haven't arrived yet. One of the things that we always worried about at Gleaning Eagles Lane and then coming here was the attitude, we have arrived. Well, no, we haven't arrived. We have only just begun.
If we ever start believing that we've arrived, then that's the beginning of the end. What do? We're called to love God, that's outward. We're called to love others, that's outward. We're called to live out the gospel life, that's outward. We are called to make a difference in the world. And as long as we recognize that if there is anyone within driving distance of this church who does not yet know the freeing and saving grace of Jesus Christ, then our job's not done. Our job's not done.